Election day is tomorrow.
And whether you're heading to the polls today to vote early or tomorrow, we want you to be informed.
That's why THV11's Amanda Yeager is with Representative French Hill with a look at his goals for this midterm election.
Well, good morning, Rob and Laura. We're out here at Community Bakery. I'm joined here by French Hill. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for the coffee.
An early morning, and I'm sure you've had a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so we're going to give candidates a chance to tell us a little bit about what their plans are if they win ahead of Election Day. And so I want to start out with asking you probably the toughest question of the morning, which is, how do you take your coffee?
I take my coffee black and strong, and a lot of it these days.
Oh, I bet. I can only imagine. All right, we'll get to the serious issues now. So what I really want to ask is for, some people may have already early voted, some people still voting tomorrow. Curious about what is going to be the one major issue you really want to be talking about and to be active on if you are to get to Washington.
Right, well, it's a great question. And also, it is important to encourage people to go out and vote. Looking back at the numbers, about 50% vote early and 50% of our voters vote on the day of the election. So it's great that you're doing this. Thanks for having me this morning. For me, I want to first and focus on getting our broken immigration system fixed. We hear a lot about it in the news. It's something that we worked on this year. We didn't get it over the goal line. It was blocked by the Democrats in the Senate this year. And I thought that was frustrating because when I campaigned in 2013 and 2014, I wanted to be a practical problem solver on the border security issue and our broken immigration system. So I hope that's something that we take up when we're back in the Congress in January.
And I know that this election has been, it started out with a lot of campaign advertisements that were very positive, for both you and Clarke, talking about your background, experience, families. It seems like there's been a little bit of a negative tone to some of these ads. I mean, is there anything you'd like to respond to as far as any of those advertisements that maybe had some things against you?
Well, my opponent all year long has told a falsehood in all of his ads, saying that I voted against pre-existing condition coverage for people in the affordable reforms of the Affordable Care Act, and that's just patently not true. Pre-existing conditions were fully covered in the ACA Reform Act of the House and in all of our plans, and there's a bipartisan support for full coverage for pre-existing conditions. So to say I voted against it is just not accurate, but that's been the whole basis for his campaign.
We've got about a minute left, so I do want to make sure to ask you, I'm sure many Arkansans are wondering, is there something specific when you get to Washington that you want to work on that will impact Arkansans the most? I know you mentioned immigration overall, but something particular to Arkansas.
Well, the three things I like to work on are things that help move our economy ahead faster. That's something I'm the most proud of my first 3.5 years in office, is reducing the regulatory burden, reducing taxes, letting the economy grow much faster, twice as fast as it did during the Obama years. So I think that's important. We need to continue to work on economic policies that help the economy grow. But we also need to make sure that our vets are accountable for their health care and their disability, that the VA delivers on that. So accountability at the VA is something that we worked on in the past Congress that we'll continue to work on. That directly benefits the 50,000 veterans here in this congressional district. And finally, just keeping up with our national defense budget, because it's so important at the Little Rock Air Force Base and our men and women in uniform.
All right. Thanks
for having me.
So much. Yeah, absolutely.
Great to be with you.
Again, this is French Hill. It'll be on the ballot tomorrow, and we appreciate you so much for joining us for coffee. Enjoy your black coffee.
You bet.
Nothing else in it,
Thanks for having me.
And so now we have Clarke Tucker joining us. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Got a little bit of an audience here. Well, what our whole purpose for this today is really just giving people a chance to hear what you want to do if you are elected tomorrow. Whether or not you voted or not, it's still good to get a little insight into what your plans are. So,
absolutely.
The first question I think will be the most difficult. I had to start out with Hill on this too. Just how do you take your coffee?
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah. People ask me how I get through the campaign without coffee, and just power through it.
Miraculous feat right there.
Yes.
All right, so no coffee for Clarke Tucker. We got that down. All right. We can move on to a little bit talking about the issues too. So I know there are multiple facets of the campaign, but what is the one issue that you really want to be focusing on if you are to get to Washington?
It's definitely health care. I think everyone in Arkansas and the country should have access to quality, affordable health care, and that's just not the case right now. And we need to keep moving until everyone has access to health care, and you have to be able to have access even if you have pre-existing conditions. And we've seen Congress vote to take those protections away that exist in the law right now, and that's what motivated me to run more than any other issue.
care.
Yeah.
And I know this election, it seemed like it started out with the advertisements being very positive about you know the candidates, their background experience, and then it seems like things have sort of shifted negative. Is there any response that you would want to give personally to any of those campaign ads maybe that were about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, our campaign has stayed positive the entire way. And so I think it's a distinction in the two types of campaigns that Congressman Hill and I have run. And our country right now is as divided as I've seen it in my lifetime. And I think that's reflected by our political leaders and the rhetoric we see coming out of Washington. And when you run ads like he has that demonizes people who have a different opinion, or these are ads that are approved by him. They're not third-party ads. They say, I'm French Hill and I approve this message. But one is about an MS-13 gang and indicates that my policies somehow will condone them, which is obviously false. It also makes two guys with tattoos on their face and their handcuffs behind their back the face of the immigrant community. And that is extremely divisive. It's very misleading. And I think that contributes to how divided we are as a country. On the other hand, I've stayed positive the entire race because I have wanted to focus on the people here in Central Arkansas and the issues that really matter to us on a daily basis, like healthcare and education, having decent paying jobs, and keeping our families safe.
And speaking of people here in Arkansas, we have about a minute left. Is there any particular issue that you're really hoping to tackle in Washington that impacts Arkansas in particular? I know healthcare will have an effect, but maybe more specific to Arkansas.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we know that agriculture is something that's the primary industry in our state, and it's had a rough year primarily because of the tariffs and the impact that's had on soybeans. And so I think we need to do a lot to make sure that the agriculture industry, because it's so important to Arkansas, has every opportunity to be successful in the future. But you can go across the board. Pre-K is something I believe in very strongly, and I think the federal government can do more to make sure that every 3- and 4-year-old child has every opportunity to fulfill all their God-given potential. But at the end of the day, it just comes back to the fact that Congressman Hill and his allies in Washington have voted to remove protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That's absolutely unacceptable. I'm a cancer survivor, and we need someone in office who recognizes the importance of being able to go to the doctor even if you have a condition.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being on. And, of course, tomorrow is Election Day, so make sure, of course, to join in with THV 11-2. We'll be having full-blown election coverage all evening and, of course, into Wednesday morning as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'll send it back to you.